listening to the Encouraging Faith podcast, doing ministry together across generational gaps.
Hey, welcome to Encouraging Faith. I'm Doug Munton. I'm the pastor at First Baptist Church of O'Fallon, Illinois. I'm here with my friend Mariano Sarabia, who's our student pastor.
That is what I do.
That's a big, that's a heavy responsibility, Mariano. Yeah. Do you feel the weight on your shoulders sometimes?
It's all in the Lord's.
It is.
But mine, I feel it sometimes.
You sometimes feel it still. Yeah, that's exactly right. So we talk here at Encouraging Faith a lot about generational issues, and I'm older than Mariano. I don't know if you knew that.
Didn't know.
So I've been the pastor here. I was the pastor here for several years before you were born. That's a weird thought.
4 years, I think.
Yeah,
29?
I'm a little past 29 years now. So
25.
Yeah. So, man, that is a weird thought. Because I've seen a lot of babies here, and I never thought about any of them as being the pastor. And here you are.
It proves you never know.
You never know. Well, we do talk about generational differences, and we're going to talk about some of the generational differences in ministry expectations. So our pastors here on staff, and really I think just people in general, you have expectations of ministry. Everyone does. But I think we can look at ministry differently from our generational perspective. So, when you were called to ministry, or when you first started, what surprised you about ministry? I mean, the vocational part of ministry.
Yeah.
I mean, we're all called to be in ministry. I'm just saying the vocational side of ministry. What sort of surprised you, 25-year-old?
Yeah, I think when I felt called to ministry, I thought a lot of it was going to be preaching on stage and at the pulpit. But doing ministry for a while now,
right? Yeah.
It's a whole lot more than that, and a lot of it is putting time in the office and planning things and preparing things and praying.
A lot of guys, I think, when they think about ministry, they think only about the publics, the standing in front of people. I think some people want to, I really want to stand in front of people and tell them what to do.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, yeah. There are a lot of people who like to tell someone what to do, but they miss the other side of ministry, the parts behind the scenes. And sometimes, I think generationally, we think about it differently too.
Yeah.
So we'll talk a little bit about some of the ways we think about ministry, maybe somewhat differently. By the way, I've heard people, you and I both, Mariano preaches to our students every Sunday night. There's a big gathering. I preach every Sunday morning, and I preach on Wednesday nights too, and chapels and other things I do sometimes. So we both do a good amount of public speaking. There's a lot of stuff behind the scenes. We'll talk one of these days about preaching more, but let's talk about kind of the expectations of vocational ministry. And is anything that, since you've been in it for your vast years, how long have you been now?
As a student pastor, going on 2 years.
And then you were
been here as the
resident.
Yeah, so about 3 or 4.
Yeah. So, what in your vast experience, as I like to say, what is it they say? Oh man, that really surprised me.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing is, it's office, spending time in the office, because I had this mindset. Naturally, I'm very evangelistic. I was wanting to be out on the streets and sharing the gospel, preaching the gospel. And what I realized, and what I'm constantly realizing, is there's a whole lot more of, building relationships, preparing and planning that goes on behind the scenes.
And there's meetings, a lot of I don't think probably a lot of guys realize you're going to have meetings about things. I mean, the only way to, and even with all the meetings we have, we sometimes feel like, oh my goodness, we don't get communication out, or we don't understand what's going on always. And it just takes a lot of that behind the scenes. So here's one thing I think is different in our generational expectations. So I grew up when I was a student pastor long years ago now, Mariano, long before you were born. Well, I feel weird just saying that. So when I think the expectation was the pastor was going to have these office hours. Now you were supposed to do things. I'll talk more about that too. But you had office hours, and I think a lot of younger guys kind of struggle with even the idea of office hours. Don't you think?
Yeah, I think
maybe
so.
Maybe not you so much, but a lot of guys do. I think.
Yeah, I think most of a lot of guys that I meet would think of, hey, I'm going to go be out in the community, and maybe don't know the value of those office hours, where you would say that, you're expected to be in the office and spending that time in the office.
Maybe part of it is, from my perspective, maybe part of it is just kind of accountability.
Yeah. So
being in the community, I don't know. I guess I'm in the community when I go to Walmart or something, you know.
Yeah.
I'm in the community, and I do see people there and things, but it doesn't replace some of the things that can happen. Like I can't talk to other guys about just the details that need to happen at Walmart because they're not at Walmart. But in the office I can. So some things, I think maybe there's just some different expectations. I think a lot of younger guys when they come into ministry, I think probably me too, but a lot of younger guys when they came into ministry feel like, I mean, why would I be in the office? And maybe my generation is, especially guys older than me, like overemphasized how long you were there. Mm-hmm. By the way, one difference is, I think a lot of the older guys had a propensity, is that a good word, for like saying, my value is how many hours I work. Mm. And it led to some really unhealthy things like neglecting family and like you were at the beck and call of any person who wanted anything. And I think they didn't set up boundaries sometimes. Yeah. And I don't think this generation thinks that way.
Yeah, I'd say it's kind of like the opposite. There's an extreme there that I see a lot of guys in my generation that have read good book, but like The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, and so they have this extreme. I'm gonna set a numerous amount of boundaries, and I'm never gonna overwork, and I need to say no to these things. And on the other side, you got two problems. One side, my side may lack in the drive and the grit. I like the word grit.
That's a good word.
Of pushing through some things and when they're difficult, that I think you guys in your generations that you pushed through. You worked hard. Sometimes it led to bad boundaries.
You say you guys, and I'm always like, I always think I'm on the young pastor. I'm surprised. I look in the mirror and I realize that, but I mean, I'm always surprised I'm not the young pastor. Yeah. How about here's one thing I think is different too. I think maybe this is a really healthy thing for a younger generation. I think a lot of guys that were older than me, probably some still my age, they feel like I got to do everything in ministry. I got to do it all. I got to be at every hospital. I got to be there. Every need there is, every problem a family has, I got to take it. Yeah. And that leads to some unhealthy, like you don't have boundaries. Your family's not, I mean, they're ignored and things like that. But it seems to me that's one of the problems. The other side is like ministry really is for everybody. Vocational ministry isn't a calling for everybody, but ministry is for everybody.
Yeah, we're all supposed to do it.
Yeah, and maybe the younger generation has a better kind of connection on that side. Maybe they understand that better.
Yeah, yeah, and I think they understand that value of they're all supposed to be doing it, and then I think that they also think of, if I can't do it, there's people that I can delegate and call up to do it instead of myself.
Mariano, I heard somebody say, some guy who was in ministry, he said something like this. He said, I thought vocational ministry was going to be more fun. And does that resonate with you some? I mean, do you feel a little of that sometimes?
I think there's times when I'm in a difficult situation or someone says something that, hurts my feelings or something like that, and I have a moment of, I thought this wouldn't be like this. But I would say that those times are far fewer. Like, that doesn't happen a lot compared to the times that I love ministry and that I know that this is what God has called me to do.
Yeah, and really loving ministry can still be, you can still love ministry even when it's not always fun. Yeah. Like I'm going to call it fun to walk through a deep problem with someone of great, grief or something, of course. Sure. But there's still some real blessing in that ministry too. And I think some people start ministry. I think I'd like to be in ministry. I think I like to be a vocational minister because I don't have to use a shovel, and and I can laugh and goof around all I want. And they don't see that sometimes ministry is a little bit different than just sometimes it's really heavy and hard and sad and painful and difficult. And that's a reality of life. That's really a reality of life, but it is also in vocational ministry. Yeah. Like we get hurt, we get wounded, we deal with people and all the good and the bad and the ugly that comes with that. Man, I sound preachery, don't I? Oh yeah, I knew what I was going to talk about. I had something, I didn't want to miss this. So can I tell you about how one thing has changed in vocational, kind of the way people look at vocational ministry?
Yeah.
And I'll just tell you how I've evolved in this, and I want like you react to this. All right,
Yeah.
you ready to do this?
Let's do it.
You're a good reactor.
Yeah.
Did you take chemistry? Because if you're in chemistry, this is going to be some sort of reaction. We're going to see what your reaction
All
is
right.
here. So I'm going to talk about goals in ministry. It's almost like a lot of guys would say goals are kind of a bad thing. I don't maybe say it exactly like that, but they would say it's not a good idea to have goals. So when I was early in ministry, man, I'm a goal setter. I had lots of goals. I set goals. When we got to ministry staff, then I started helping other guys kind of think about goals and stuff. And then that, not everybody liked it. Not everybody responded to it well. And I did less of that.
Yeah.
And now I find myself, and you know this well, I find myself kind of like say, let's set some goals.
Yeah.
And my thought about it is, this is what helps define like what's important, what do I need to know, what do I need to like remind myself of, and what do I need to help the guys on staff, the other pastors here, what do I need to help them to think about and to focus on, and sort of like the plow instead of just think of it like a bulldozer. Sometimes you need a little bit of a plow where you have a sharp point and say that's what matters most. Let's make sure we're focused on that, and goals sometimes help me do that. So I find myself kind of coming back to goals some. So let's hear your reaction, your chemistry background. Were you a chemist ever before? You weren't old enough to be a chemist.
Nope.
Had you been a chemist,
Stoichiometry
is
hard. Stoichiometry is hard.
Okay.
My reaction. So, goals. I think goals are so valuable that I see that as a key part of casting vision. But I'll acknowledge that I think a lot of my friends and peers, my generation, either in ministry or out of ministry, can kind of look at goals as something maybe that they wouldn't necessarily want to be a part of because they look at it as, oh, it's a number, or
it is a number,
and it is.
It's a number.
Yeah.
But if it can represent more, right?
Yeah, and a number, I say often to our students or our staff, and I say that, hey, these numbers, they're names. People have said that often, but it's a reality that when we look at a list or when we look at a number, those represent souls. And so we need to, are we supposed to grow? Yeah.
Yeah, we're supposed to grow, reach
right?
those people who need the Lord. We want to reach them. So here's the way here's part of why I've kind of come, this full circle and said, all right, I'm going to help us sharpen on this, because we're in a larger church. And so if you just go by anecdotes, there's always something good at FBCO. We're in O'Fallon, Illinois, by the way, not O'Fallon, Missouri, which is a fine town, but we're on the Illinois side, suburbs of St. Louis.
Yep.
But the Illinois side is so confusing to people. So I think in the larger church, you always have anecdotes. You can say, well, we're doing fine because, and you point to someone, whatever, someone grew in their faith, someone came to know the Lord. But that anecdotes don't show you the trends. And so you could be just really trending in a way that is unhealthy, but you miss it because you just see the anecdotes. But when you say, all right, we're gonna look at the trend, that's really a number, representing people. It's how many people, are more people growing in faith? Are we seeing people like coming to classes where they can study the Bible? Are there more of them or less of them? Those things have helped us. Mm-hmm. It seems as a church, help me and you, and maybe our church as a whole, to kind of focus on some important aspects. I just think we get it wrong, like you said, if we just think of it as a number, or if you do it for your own self-glory. Man, that's a really ugly thing. We'll talk about that someday too. But if you're doing it for the Lord, for the right reasons, it can help you. It can really be a helpful thing. Yeah. But I think probably generationally we look at this so different. We can often look at it differently, like it's all bad. And I don't want to just think about, I don't want to be the drive. All I care about is, I don't care about you. I just care about what you do. Mm-hmm. I don't want that. Yeah. But neither do I want you to just not care about doing your best in ministry. I think that's stewardship, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Doing your best in the ministry. Yeah. Man, I've talked a lot. What do you want to say, Mariano?
No, I just to continue with piggybacking off of that is just, I think when I look at students, young adults my age, we did an event last year where we were trying to get our students to be more evangelistic, and I did put together a number, and there was a purpose behind it, but what I reevaluated afterwards, I didn't see a lot of students sharing the gospel or learning the Roman road as I kind of prepared them for it. And when I look back on evaluating that, I think that what we did was we failed at explaining the purpose of it. And so this year we're kind of doing something again. And what I see that they need, they want the numbers there. We need to reach,
purpose.
But
Why?
they need the purpose.
Otherwise, it's just the number.
Yeah. Otherwise, we're just
Until
trying to get to a number.
So let me ask you a question. Let's talk about this. Two sides.
Yeah.
What's your hardest thing in ministry? What's your most joyful thing in ministry? All right, let's just talk about it for a moment. What's your hardest? We'll each say it. All right, want to? What's your hardest thing in ministry? What really is hard, like vocational ministry. I'm talking about in general, but sometimes it's just ministry as a whole. What's the hardest thing?
And then just dealing with those that are unhappy with something that I'm doing.
Aren't you a little surprised that you didn't expect that, right?
Yeah.
I'm the same. I thought, man, my dad was a pastor, so I knew that there were going to be people. My dad was nicer than me, and there were people that were mad at him. So yeah, it's hard. Complaints are they sound heavier to us often than people realize, and sometimes it's a sheer weight of them. How many you get? Like you might say a little small complaint, but if it's you've heard a series of complaints, that might be feel crushing.
Yeah.
And really, the people's side of and us too. We need complaints sometimes.
Yeah.
All right, what is it that really charges
The best
you
thing,
up
seeing a
and
student
really
give their life to Christ, get saved. That will never get old. And I think if you're
That is awesome,
anybody
isn't
a
it?
Christian, if it ever gets old to you, then you need to
It is
reevaluate.
awesome. And really the whole joy of seeing God's church at work. It's like every once in a while I just think, this is really a great privilege that I get to participate in this way.
Yeah.
And that I even get to do it as a part of a livelihood, even support my family even. It's I'm really thankful. I mean, I sometimes find myself focusing on the problems and difficulties. There's a lot of really great things too. And I think if you're in vocational ministry, it'd be good to remember the blessings and not just the problems. It's easy to remember the problems.
Yeah.
It's hard to remember the blessings, but it's important to.
Yeah. That's good.
Well, hey, we're glad you joined us on Encouraging Faith today. It's always good to talk about things like this. And whether you're in vocational ministry or you're just serving, I say just serving, good night. We're never just serving the Lord, but whether you're a life group teacher or serving or just considering ministry for the future, whatever it might be, sometimes it's good to think together about things. And sometimes we're affected by our own experiences and the parts of our generation, how the world thinks around us. So it's good for us to think together. Enjoyed it, Mariano. Thanks. Hey, God bless you. Hope you all have a great, great day and find a way to serve the Lord this week.
See you.